I am transgender. Growing up, it was scary. I didn't have anyone to talk to. My family didn't understand. It's a struggle to be real. Society, for some reason, doesn't want people to be real. I've come across a lot of transgender children in the world, and I want to do everything in my power to make sure that they don't go through the things that I went through. It doesn't matter what gender you are. It doesn't matter what you look like. It just matters, are you a good person? I want someone to know it's okay to be transgender. It's okay to discover that you're not transgender if you think you are. It's okay to be gender fluid. It's okay to be gender neutral. It's okay to be gender nonconforming. It's okay to be male. It's okay to be female. It's okay to be gay, straight, lesbian. It's okay. Just please be a good person. Be kind. Hello everyone. Welcome to the next episode of Kelly's Quest. Today I have two wonderful guests on the show. One of them happens to be a co-worker of mine from the middle school that I work at, and she has been wonderful enough to ask her child to come along on the show with me. The two people that we're going to be talking to are going right through the middle of something really important, and they're trying to find their way through it. And this conversation we're going to have is, how does a parent and a child navigate being gender nonconforming? So if I could introduce to you Miss Kari Sciera and her child, Mace Sciera. So Kari, I want to come to you first because for me, I'm so impressed with what you're doing. I mean, I watched you in a classroom the other day and you were speaking, and I could see the wheels turning in your brain to make sure that you gave the proper pronouns to your child Mace, and that was huge to watch. It actually kind of gave me butterflies, made me tear up a little bit, and that was when I asked you to come on to the show because I'm like, this is powerful stuff that's going on. And Mace, I don't know if you know this or not, but you got a pretty crazy good mother.
I think I know.
So Mace, I guess what I want to ask you is really and truly pronouns. I haven't talked a lot on the show about pronouns, and I kind of want to give our audience a feel for how things happen and are slowly happening in our school system. If we could go along and do this, at my school, when we introduce ourselves a lot of times, we will say the pronouns that I like to use for me are she, her, and hers. Could you please tell us the pronouns you use?
I use they, them, theirs as pronouns.
Okay, and Kari?
I use she, her, and hers.
She, her, and hers. Seems like something so basic that everybody should know about, but it is also something that is very new to a lot of people. So I appreciate you coming on here to help educate us. When did you kind of decide that they was the proper pronoun for you? Was it just like an epiphany that like, poof, hey, this is what I want to go? Was it a slow, methodical, meandering river process?
Well, I mean, it was slow because I hadn't really figured out for a while that I wasn't what everyone else was telling me that I am. But basically, I hadn't really known that being trans was a thing. I didn't hear anything about it. I just knew I wasn't really comfortable when people called me a girl, and no one ever called me a boy or anything. So after a while, it was like, I'm not comfortable with being called a girl, and I'm not comfortable with being called a boy. And I just kind of went to Google, and it was like, there's a gender neutral thing for you. There's something that you can be called by. And I was like, oh my gosh.
Isn't that just one of the most, it's like if something's taken off your shoulder, a weight is taken off your shoulder. It's like, wait, there is something. I mean, I know we try to get away from labels and we're trying to move beyond that, but in the U.S., pronouns are just part of our common language. So you went onto Google and you found, hey, there's this pronoun for me, they.
Yeah.
Did you kind of hold that to yourself and develop that, or did you go directly to your family or your siblings? How did you sort of approach that process?
I was really just holding it in for a pretty long time. I told some of my close friends, but I told them not to refer to me by it in public because I didn't want anyone to like think badly of me or to think that I was like looking for attention and wanted to be special, because I was just trying to figure out who I was, and I didn't want everyone to start calling me by something if I felt like, because the world's like, oh, that's a phase, and I was like, what if it is a phase? Like, what if people tell me it's a phase and then it gets so caught in my head that I think it is? And so I held it in for a while, and I was like, it's been a while. I still feel this way. I've felt like this for a very long time. I don't think it is. And then I was like, I have to tell people.
So what was it like when Mace came to you and told you, hey, I want to use the they pronoun?
I was very supportive and did the, right from the start, I was on board, but I had a hard time, complying because I had, 16 years of having 2 daughters and saying, come on, girls, let's go. And
well, you thought you had 16 years of having
right.
2 daughters.
Yes.
You didn't.
Referring them, yeah. So see, there you go. So it was just something, the vocabulary I just had to learn. And then thank you, by the way, for your compliments, so nice. But when I'm speaking about Mace and they're not there, I want to always be real and honor Mace and their wishes, and so I try so hard to use the proper pronoun. But when I'm speaking, they'll say, both your kids were there, because I'll say, and then they got in the car, and then they went to get food, and they're like, wait a minute, I thought it was just you and Mace. And I'll say,
It was.
It was.
So that becomes a teachable moment.
Yes.
As a teacher for you. You're like, yes, a moment to inform people.
And it's not just the kids, it's my colleagues, my friends, my family members, It's been a learning experience for all of us, led by Mace.
Right. Well, I'm glad that you said that, because when you were saying, everybody was saying it's a phase, this is something that's going to pass, I think a lot of transgender and gender nonconforming people really and truly hope that they're right when they say that, because we know that we're in for a handful of a life. We know that things are going to be a bit challenging for us. We know that society doesn't quite necessarily want us to be authentic. Mm-hmm. And so I bought into it as just a phase. For 40 years, I bought into it as just a phase. And I mean, I don't know any phases really that last 40 years. And so I don't really know. Eventually, I'm like, I've got to become authentic. And telling people my story was scary, because when you are going from one way of presenting to a different way of presenting, there's this middle ground that happens. And society doesn't know what to make of me in that situation. I would still, in the South, in Tennessee, would use the men's restroom, even though I'd been on hormones for a year, but I was still trying to trick the world for a little bit longer that I was male, because I had a teaching job. Mm-hmm. So I would come out of the men's restroom, and the men would do a double take and like, wait, whoa, this is the wrong bathroom. And that's when I realized it's like, okay, I'm being dumb now. This is not going to help anyone. Let's become authentic.
Yeah.
At your school, you go to a private school, you said.
Yes.
Did you go to the school as a support with Mace when this all came about with, okay, I want my principals, my teachers, my classmates? Were you there, or Mace, did you just say, I'm strong, I'm powerful, and I'm going to do this?
I kind of just arrived on the first day of school, because I transferred to the school like a year ago, and people were like, hello, and I'm like, I'm Mace, they. And that was just the first day at that school, because at my previous high school, I had basically been inside identifying as non-binary for a long time, but I hadn't told anyone yet. I was so afraid to tell these people I'd known for so long. As soon as I got to the school with these new people, I told everyone. I told everyone I got close to, and they would correct the staff members on my pronouns, and they'd correct other kids at the school on my pronouns, because it's an alternative school and there's quite a few trans kids there as well. So.
Oh, nice. Good.
Yeah.
What's really great, Kelly, is I'll go be at the school and I'll see a 4 or 5-year-old refer to Mace as they, them. And it just, you know, it's what they've learned, so they're they're very comfortable with it, and I just think it's a really great culture at the school.
That is fantastic.
Very supportive for all the different learners that are there.
Okay. That is very true. I mean, that's got to make you feel like, I mean, like you said, you don't want to stand out, you don't want to be special, but when you get accepted after not being accepted, it feels really good. And it shows to the rest of the world, I think. I think the rest of the world sees, as I'm becoming more authentic, that I'm becoming happier, I'm becoming more of myself, I'm becoming more confident, and I'm slowly learning that if I put my mind to stuff, I truly possibly can accomplish it. One thing you brought up a second ago that our audience might not understand, you were talking about non-binary.
Yes.
Would you like to try to explain that to the audience for us, please, what non-binary means?
Of course.
Thank you.
So non-binary is kind of an umbrella similar to gender nonconforming, and basically non-binary means someone who doesn't fit into the gender binary of male and female, I guess. And I usually identify mostly with non-binary because it just feels, it's the most comfortable word for me to call myself, and yeah.
Okay, so it's not a middle ground. I don't want people to think that it's truly not a middle ground to be non-binary. It's not like I'm halfway in between male and female. That's not what it means. It is its own separate, outside of that spectrum definition. And I'm beginning to understand that it takes all kinds to make a human race, and I'm imagining that gender is infinite. Like, if you can imagine a gender, it exists. And for you to then go and embrace this one and become yourself, it's got to be one of those things that other people at your school are seeing, and there might be some kid there that is like, okay, they did this. If they can do it, maybe I can. And you might not ever even know this person exists, but just by being authentic, you could be affecting people. I know for a fact you've already affected Kari, because I see it. I mean, you know, I walked into your classroom for the first time this year, and I looked up on the wall, and there was a gender unicorn. And I'm like, okay, a gender unicorn, for the people that don't know, it's kind of a poster that has it's got a unicorn on there that's this grotesquely purple looking unicorn. It's not the best looking of unicorns, but it is a unicorn. And it has a kind of a spectrum sliding chart of different terminology as far as sexual identity, gender identity, and things like that. And the kids see that, and I saw it, and it gave me an opportunity to come talk to you. And that's how this conversation with you began, was all because of that silly purple gender unicorn on your wall that I saw. I'm like, okay, she's safe. I can speak to her. The thing that is not safe is when we get out into the world, people, I'm assuming, still want to classify you binary. When they come up, a stranger that sees you, it would be difficult for you to be called she at this point.
Yeah.
It would be difficult, I'm not sure, but to be called he at this point.
Yeah.
A stranger at a gas station, a restaurant or something, chances are, because they've been so binary driven, they're going to use one of those two pronouns with you. How do you cope with that? Because there's going to be people that this is happening to that are going to want to know, how do you deal with it, and is it okay? Do you handle it well? Or is it one of the harder things? I
mean, it definitely doesn't feel good when someone looks at me and the first thing they think is, like, 99% of the time they're like, oh, hello, miss, have a nice night, miss. And I'm like, oh, that's not right. But I try to not hate these people. I try to not feel like they're hurting me, because I know when most of the time they're just trying to be nice people by telling me to have a good day. And like, even though they throw a gendered word in there, my feelings are that it's not personal.
Okay.
Unless they're saying something that's meant to be hurtful to me, like a slur or something. They're just trying to be nice. They probably don't know my pronouns. I actually have like a vest and things that say they, them, their on them, which I wear in public sometimes.
Good for you.
Because I know there are people out there who've heard of my pronouns before, and I thought maybe even people who don't will see this and say, weird that there are pronouns on your clothing. And then maybe think maybe someone refers to themselves with these pronouns. But yeah.
You know, a walking messenger board.
Yes.
So you've got another child.
Yes.
Also, this that's going on with you, Mace, it's kind of like with me, it was a very big deal when I transitioned, and it almost seemed as if to the rest of the world I might be selfish because I had to take care of myself. How do you get along with your siblings? Do you have any navigation challenges with this going on, or is your sibling just said they are the best sibling ever? I'm very fortunate to have Mace. Maybe not.
Well, I mean, I have problems with my little sister, but
They have nothing to do with
she
your
doesn't. It has nothing to do with my pronouns. She calls me by they.
Oh, good.
She was like one of the first people I told about it.
Yeah.
Because she saw, because I put it on like my Tumblr blog first, which is so classic in this generation. And she was like, oh, I saw that you put they on your blog. I'm just going to call you they. I was like, all right. And then that was done.
Yeah, she's very supportive, and
Yeah.
she admires her big,
Oh, really?
big sibling very much.
Have you had to have any talks one-on-one with the younger sibling about it at all?
You
or
know,
is
we just took it in stride, and my youngest goes to the same school, and it's just it's our normal. It's our
Nice.
it's very quickly our new
Yeah.
normal.
That's
my
what-
sister's best friend is a trans guy at our school. So
Okay.
like, it's just so in the culture of our school. It's just not a big deal. Like, just is part of who you are at that point.
That is so
People are
huge.
like, there's Mace. Mace goes by they. And they move on to the next person.
So, are you a senior,
I'm a junior.
a junior? So one more year of it, and then the real world happens. Yes, and then the real world. I know a lot of people that as they've moved out of high school, like for me, when I moved out of high school, as strange as it sounded, a part of a safety net was ripped out from under me. Something I knew that, even though I was very strange at school, even though things were a little bit different but not completely different, that once I got out of school, I was going to have to create a whole new world. And I made the mistake of creating a whole new world as a male. Let me rephrase that. Mistake is not correct. I presented as a male because I truly thought that that would be the easiest life for me, not realizing that it was the hardest life for me. And as I started becoming more independent and I started becoming myself, I also started getting some backlash and started going back towards another gender. In other words, I started becoming hyper-masculine to hide who I was because I was now out in this world where I didn't feel safe, and I knew if I presented as a male, I would feel safe to the world. I didn't feel safe. So do you have any ambitions in the future, like college or anything like that? Or is this one of those things one day at a time for you so that you can make sure you're doing it properly?
It's kind of just one day at a time. I mean, I don't know where I'm gonna go yet after I finish high school. I still have the rest of this year and next year to think about it, but I might want to go towards a future in helping other people with the same sort of thing because I've always felt connected to other people who are like me or who have had hard times or anything like that because of the person they authentically are.
Right.
And I'd love to just help younger kids specifically, I guess, with just being true to who they are, because it took me a while, and I want people to have a cleaner, more like visible access to find out who they are. Since I spent so long like, oh, I'm not a boy or a girl, like, what does that mean? And then I had to be 16 and use Google to find out. I wish the kids didn't have to just question themselves. I wish they could find out so easily, but they can't.
Technology is changing, as you know, so much, Kari. When we were
Right.
years ago, many young years ago, my social media was riding my bicycle to my neighbor's house and saying hi to them. That was truly my social media. And I remember discovering that I had an identity when I read a magazine and saw a trans person in the magazine for the first time ever. I was probably 12. And to know that you have an identity that goes along with that you're not alone is powerful, powerful stuff. And you're saying that you're trying to help people to find that community at an earlier age. Do you have a pretty good community yourself of people that you hang out with? Do you hang out with gender nonconforming people, transgender people, cisgender people, gay people, straight people? I mean, like, is it I'm finding that my population of people I hang out with now that I'm more authentic is much broader, a lot different class of people than I used to, and I'm fortunate for it. Are you slowly finding that for you as you're becoming more authentic?
I definitely know that I have a very broad spectrum of people who are close to me. I know all different gender people. I know at least like 5 or 6 trans people, 4 of which go to my school. Almost all of my friends are gay or pansexual or bisexual or not straight sexuals. Just because a lot of kids came to the school I'm at because they didn't feel welcome at their public schools that they went to. So everyone I know is just either accepting of people who are different than them or is one of the people who is different from the kids that they probably were not treated nicely by a public school.
Can I ask you the name of your school?
It's called Sudbury Valley School.
Sudbury Valley School sounds like a pretty progressive
It's a good school.
It really is. How did you find it? Did you do the research to find it?
I did the research because my youngest actually was just not really a great fit for public school. So I started looking into some alternative environments where I thought she would be happier, and stumbled upon this school. And when we went for the interviews, Mace accompanied us. It's always the 3 Musketeers. And so we sat in for my youngest, her interviews, and then so the youngest was scheduled to do a 1-week test week, and I said, you know, Mace, because I really never got the feeling Mace was really flourishing or ever really felt really happy at the public school she was at. I said, you could go to this school too. Do you want to do a week also like your sister? And Mace said, okay. And the rest is history. I could not ever get them to return to public school. When there's a snow day, they are disappointed.
Yeah.
Oh, that is
so
fantastic.
What does that say?
I mean, it says that
Yeah.
you're fortunate that you found a place, and you're fortunate that you have a parent that did that research for you. We're getting close to the end of the show now. We're going to wrap it up, but what I want you all to know is I bring people like you all onto the show because it uplifts me also. I mean, I get educated by it, and every time I meet somebody new that is brave and challenging, it kind of gives me a little bit more energy to carry on. So you all have actually given me a little bit more energy to where now I'm ready to go do some other things, and hopefully you all will feel that same energy and will take it with you all into the world and become more authentic as your life goes along. So truly thank you all, Kari Sciera, Mace Sciera, for being on the show, and everybody out there in Kelly Quest land. Thank you all so much for this. I know that this episode has some terminology in it that might be new to you. We will try to cover it in a future episode, but as Mace so eloquently put, there is this thing called Google. And now Google might give you some misinformation, but it can also give you some of this terminology. So thank you all, everyone, and you all have a great time, and we'll see you next month. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're so brave.
Wasn't I told you, it's just like it's